So 6 o'clock on my watch. Guess we'll start the meeting. We'll run it like the agenda says. Call to order and establish a quorum. We don't have a quorum. So we have 3 of us. Maybe we'll establish a quorum after some people show up. So we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. We all rise, do the Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll establish a quorum then before we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Perry's here. We have a quorum. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Got left out to the flag. Oh, I have to practice the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah. All right. We'll wait. I think hopefully Wes shows up and we can talk. We'll start with public comments. Did anybody sign up for public comments or not have a chance to sign up and wish to make public comments?
Can we make them afterwards?
Maybe, maybe not. It'd be better if you did it now.
I don't think so.
You don't want to make a public comment now?
But I'd rather do it after we got the information.
You do it when you get ready.
For the drought. Look at what y'all discuss on the drought.
I think it'd be good, let them hear what's going on and then let them make comments. Wouldn't you?
We can work it that way.
I mean,
Blake?
we don't even know what's
Good
going on
evening.
yet.
All right, well, we kicked it off. Hopefully Matt's not going to be here, Blake, but I think maybe Wes will be. We'll see. Haven't heard from him. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I guess I'll start off. Discussion number 6, drought management plan. So the latest iteration of the drought planning committee is the entire board. And so as we move into the future and discuss drought planning and what that's going to look like for Kinney County, the committee now is the entire board, and we would need a quorum to do anything. So that's how that works. And then whatever the committee does is going to recommend it to themselves, what they decide, and then work towards putting something in the books that looks like a drought plan. So that's kind of how we're going about it. I guess we can start with a little bit of history of Kinney County and their drought planning. Something that we're obligated to do as a water board is to manage to our DFC. And right now, what we have in place currently, and it's printed here, and we're all familiar with this, the Texas Water Development Board gets this Water Weekly thing. It's a drought index for the whole state, and our county is on here. And in our management plan currently, we look at this, and that's it. So there's no actionable items. Spring could be dried up. Spring could be flowing at 30 CFS. Pinot Creek could be running. Pinot Creek could be dry, whatever. This is what currently we have on our books and have had. Blake, you could correct me, for a long time. Let's just go with a long time. So hopefully we can improve on that as a committee. Other conservation districts have significantly more stuff. What our drought plan is going to look like is going to be up to us. It might look like whatever we decide it's going to look
Stop
like.
right there. There's a lot of districts don't have a drought management plan, Dave. Don't make it sound like there's all these districts out there got one. Is that not correct?
I don't know how many have them and how many don't have them.
There's not all of them.
They should have one. So I'm going to say,
Is
I'm going
that
to
your
submit.
opinion?
It is my opinion.
Well, there you go. That's
What's
your opinion.
What's your opinion, Randy? Should we have a drought plan?
No. We should have a drought mitigation plan. We should have something to look at: clearing brush, enhancing water. You find that funny? Okay. Anyway, that's, no,
So you don't think we need a
Okay.
drought plan?
the drought management plan, we don't have our zones figured out yet, do we?
We have plenty of science to
Oh, we
have a
do.
drought plan.
And the science is showing that the well, the pumping is not affecting the spring. So where do you
That's
go from there?
hard to argue.
It's
luck
debatable,
with
Dave. It's debatable.
Good luck with that.
Good luck with you.
To all of us, that's why we're here together to try to decide on something. So no, let's just hold off a second. Can I finish my little intro,
Yes.
Barry? And then we're all going to have a chance to say our opinion. So a little bit of history. This, as far as I know, is at least the fourth committee that we've had to work on this issue. And this is still all we have. Some of us might figure this is enough. Maybe, Randy, that's enough for you. That's fine. That's your opinion. But this is the fourth committee. So there was a citizens committee and there was people from all across, all the different interests. And that committee, the majority of that committee came up with an idea that went nowhere because the board didn't like it. So that's the board's prerogative. There was another 3-person committee. I think Randy, you and Matt were on, and Charlie. And I don't know how many times that met, but nothing came out of that. Another 3-person committee was formed of myself and Perry and Charlie Gaines. And 2 proposals to look further into came out of that committee, and nothing progressed from there with the board. So that's where we are now, and hopefully something will come out of this committee, and I think we should meet on a regular basis to work on the issue. Some reasons why I think we need a drought management plan is because we've missed a DFC 2 of the last 3 years. Vince can vouch for that last year, and you guys all got the memo, right, that we missed the DFC in 2025 for GMA 7. The flow versus the rainfall was below the line, and we did not make our DFC for 2025. So there are some issues with that, and I think it's hard to argue that we don't need to do something about that failure. Something else about that deal, and Wes has said this, and I don't want to put words in Wes's mouth, but he has mentioned something to the effect that we need to wait until we have a new DFC to have a drought plan. I don't think that's accurate. We have a DFC right now that's current. It's not perfect, but it's all we got, and we're obligated to manage to it. And that's what Vince did a report on recently that we all got. And until we get a new DFC, because the process is very long and arduous, and we probably won't have that new DFC and that new MAG until the end of 2027 anyway. So that's like a year and a half out. So in the meantime, I guess we'll be meeting to talk about what the possibilities are. Vince is coming out with new science all the time. There's always going to be new science. So there's this thing called best available science, and we need to use what we have to do what we're supposed to do. So that's what I think. I'm the chairman of this committee, but I'm just one voice. I'm not going to be, in charge of what we do. I'm not in charge of what we think, but I think we all need to get out what we think on the table, and then, try to work something out. So with that, I guess we just kind of open it up to talk about it. Perry, you got something?
Well, I know everybody's, there's 2 sides to all this. Seems like everybody's divided on everything. There shouldn't be one side, water. That's the whole issue. That's what we're here for, water. And history has shown us what happens when people do not respect the water. Look at Asherton. Look at the counties over by the coast that they're running out of water. Everybody thinks it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen ever, but it will happen. And I checked the aquifer. Now, I didn't check it this time. I didn't have time. I just got off work, come up here. Whenever you check the aquifer, it's in a 5-number drought on the aquifer itself. Okay, once the aquifer is in a number 5 drought, there's not any other depth to show how much more severe it is than 5. And it could take years to recharge it with no matter rainfall we're getting. We're getting a lot of rain right now, and we're going to get more this summer. This is supposed to be a wet summer. But if we don't do something now, and we end up like they are in the coast, or like they did in Asherton, where the town just dries up and everybody leaves, there's 23 out of 35 people that live, that have land, that permits in this town. 23 of them don't even live in the county. And what do you think they're going to do whenever they run out of water? They're going to leave us sitting there without any water. They're going to pump all they can, get out, and you're stuck here at home in your own places with no water. If we don't get a control of it, that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to cheat anybody out of water. We're not trying to restrict anybody out of water. Let's get a control of it where we know what we have, and then do something about it where we can. If it's too late, it's too late. You can't go back after that. So, I mean, it's not an issue of who's on whose side. It's an issue of water, strictly. That's the only reason I'm here. Water. So let's get a control of it. If we have to have a management plan, let's get a management plan that everybody can live with, but let's get one on the books, and then we can make amendments and changes to that. At least we have one to go by a little bit. But if you don't start, you're never going to get anything done. That's just real simple. So let's do something. Let's get it on the books. We can change it as we need to. But if you don't ever put one on the books, you don't have one. You don't have any control. You don't have any effort of changing anything. If you can't change it, it doesn't do any good to have it. What is this whole committee about? This whole water board? There's nothing that we should do. If we're not going to do anything, why have a meeting? Me, I think it's about water, and that's strictly all that it's about is water. Shouldn't be any side. Should be water. So that's my opinion. So everybody, that's what I think. And I know I'm just one person in this thing, but it's all about the water. Now we have drawn up a plan, and we did submit it, but nobody even wanted to vote it in, or even to make changes on it.
Yeah, and we'll bring Vince in the equation here in a second. Vince, you still hearing all this?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so stand by for just a second, because we are eager to hear what you think our options include. I don't know, fellas. Sorry.
He doesn't like to use the word options.
Well, yeah, you might have a different term for that by now, but we'll leave that up to him. Randy, what do you think again? You want to build on what you think? Like,
No, I want to hear some other opinions.
okay,
Put mine out there.
I have one or two.
okay, stand by, please, Ms. Bulware. Blake, you got anything, man? You want to just weigh in, just generic, general thoughts on the whole deal, whatever.
I think that at the point that we're at right now, and I understand that we want to take steps, and I'm all for doing what's best for the county. The thing that really has me worried right now, and Perry touched on it too, is what is going on the coast right now. And basically, from what I have researched and studied and heard, is that basically Corpus Christi just moved north and got water. And I don't know if you've heard that or not.
I heard that.
And they just moved north and just got water.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they had to drill without permits to get the water.
And so,
Yeah, the state basically approved their new source.
That's
Waived a
been in the
bunch of
works.
stuff.
Prime land in San Patricio County, and that's where they got it from. And it's all a political game, and who's going to make money off of it over there. So you have to understand there's agendas with those headlines. So again, there's people that were trying to make money, mainly City of Corpus, but they aren't in the business of making water. They're mining for water. They have a company that's already going to be desalinization. They're coming. They've been built for a year and a half ago. They're coming on board this summer, and it's just they The city of Corpus is gonna have to agree to buy from them.
So,
Anyway, but Blake,
It's
yeah,
politically charged.
so none of that happened.
None of what happened.
They didn't go north and get
Oh,
water.
they're doing that too.
Okay.
They're gonna have to get it from there. There's a lithium refinery that's new there. There's a whole nother, oil and gas refinery over there. There's a lot of new industrial growth. They've gotta be able to supply to it.
So what this groundwater district is faced with, what this community is faced with, what this county is faced with is much larger. This is a great tool to have, but it's on a much larger scale. Water is important. My biggest fear right now is that someone from the outside is going to come and want our water, being Laredo, San Antonio, whatever it is. I've been quoted several times about me saying that there was no talk with Laredo on water with anyone in this county. And I was mistaken. I researched it after that. We don't have 100% of the answers here. We're people just like y'all are. Since then, I've seen that. I think that that needs to be our fight and this going forward. I think that there have been steps taken by this board in the last 3 or 4 years that have been great steps. And I wish that we would talk more about that. I heard that Fort Clark's forming a committee. That's great. I went to them 2 or 3 years ago. Randy was there, and we tried to get them to do that.
I did it.
They finally did
Did
it.
it Saturday.
And this is all recorded. You can look on, I think Adam might have recorded that meeting. He probably remembers it. They were all there and we're like, look, we need to do something working together. But we continue to get the black eye for it. So I think that as we move forward, that we need to not be enemies with one another, but we need to be prepared for the ultimate fight. And if we can get some management going on this, the other hard part about this is that a year ago we lost our hydrologist. We were planning on being in a much different spot right now than we are right now. So everybody's pushing the drought plan, right? Pushing the drought plan. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, we haven't even given Vince a chance to collect data.
Yeah. No,
Like
that's
we
what-
got 6 months here before we have that. Vince may say, well, something sooner than that. I don't know. So here we are, we're working on this, but in 6 months, Vince may come say, you know what? It's not over here, it's over there. It's not over there, it's over here. So Randy's right in a way whenever he says we need to establish the zones. So I see both ends of it. But my deal is I'm tired of getting the black eye whenever we go to Fort Clark, we go to Mud in this meeting, and we say, we need to get together and do something. We need to get together and do something. What I see right now is on the engineering standpoint of it, there's a lot of wells in this county that need to be checked, that may need attention. And this is all public information. And I think that that is where our time needs to be spent at this time before we get started in depth on this. And y'all can hang me, y'all can tar and feather me for that. But I think that there is water moving from places that isn't supposed to be moving. It's going back and forth. And it's because wells are out there that are drilled in an improper way, encased in an improper way.
That's
and
a
we-
fact, yeah.
We as a groundwater district can step in and say,
But
you know
who
what?
does that?
Huh?
Who's supposed to go out and check that? That's where I don't understand. There's nobody checking, nobody to do where water's going.
Well, it's all public information, but it would probably be a TCQ matter. I don't know.
Oh, TCQ's not gonna do nothing but sit on their hands.
So
I've talked to TCQ till I'm blue in the face. And they will not do nothing. They said, oh, it's the railroad commission.
but here's the deal. You have landowners that are willing to let us work on this, right?
Sure.
We have good relationships because of Marty, Jim, Janelle, Bonnie, everybody around here. Maybe us as board members, maybe we're not all bad. They like us too. Who knows? Depends on the day. But I think that our funds and our time would be better spent saying, you know what? Let's try and fix one of these wells this year. Let's support it financially, whatever, if we can, and let's try and fix this well. But you get back to the old song and dance of where everybody says, well, you're helping them out, but you're not helping me out. And we have to go through this as a holistic view and say, this is for the good of the spring. This is good for Pinto. This is good for Kinney County. And my deal is I feel like here we're spinning our wheels. I'm not against the basic things, but we have been working on things. That's what, whenever you started the meeting, and this isn't picking on you. Don't take it that way.
Well,
You
yeah.
say, we haven't done anything. We've had 4 committee meetings. We haven't done anything. My deal is that I'm in a state of confusion about it all. I'm going to be honest with you because I think that we have more water moving where it's not supposed to be moving through abandoned wells, whatever's going on, then a drought plan is going to help us. That's my personal
And that's
opinion.
part of the solution for sure. I know that, well, we know that those wells exist.
We know that they do. That is not a science deal. That is a in concrete deal. We know that that's there, right?
Okay, but
We
who
have wells,
goes and
Dave,
checks
that we're not even allowed access to.
Okay, but who's supposed to go investigate this? How and who?
Well, Marty can and does do a lot of the farmer wells and a lot of,
busy, but I mean,
but she
do we
does.
have an individual that's going to go out and say, okay, this is not right, and then bring it to the board and say, well, this is not right, because that ain't without any accountability for anything, nothing gets done. I mean, who does this?
There's
Who's
there's
supposed
ways to
do
do that, and the state has that. Who do they call those people? The people that inspect the wells, and
Is it the Railroad Commission? Would they have something to do with that?
no, there's another public entity that does
You'd have to
that.
go down with machines to check the case. Now we have the records on how the wells were drilled here, if they were logged.
But
You know,
who
back in the
does that? Who's supposed to go do that? Is that Marty's job? Is that?
well, she doesn't have the equipment to do it. It's down in the ground.
You can't hold anybody
Wait,
accountable.
The landowner has
Yes.
to allow.
Permission from the landowner.
To do
You
it.
got landowners that won't let them out there.
Okay, well, I understand that.
Yeah.
But
So,
We
who's
can check
supposed,
with Greg.
who's
Hey,
supposed to do
Vince.
this to me? Do we have anybody hired that does that? That's what I'm asking.
Not at this moment, you know.
Vince, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hey, can you help us put a name to the state commission that goes out and makes sure some of these wells are properly built or maintained? What do they call that? They were at the summit too, those guys.
Yeah. So I'd like to say stay tuned here because these are some of the things that align with rules and recommendations that Greg's currently reviewing on behalf of the district there. As I read the district's rules, it's an honor system. And the organization that's responsible for that at the state level is TDLR, but it has to, not align with certain requirements that are outlined in statute there as it relates to some well completion things that after the fact, I think was already discussed here, really hard to get them to do something. So in terms of who's responsible, I would say it's the drillers that should be responsible in terms of adhering to the district's rules. And then in terms of that governing body, it would be TDLR, but they have to receive a complaint in a very timely manner, like within 30 days of the well being completed, in terms of what I've seen historically, if they're going to intervene. If you try to call them 5 years, 10 years after the fact, the odds of success there are extremely low.
Are these wells that you're talking about, Matt, are they recent wells or are they
No.
ancient wells?
There probably hadn't been an irrigation well drilled in Kenny County and
See, that's what I was thinking. I haven't heard. of
maybe
anybody
since the
doing
groundwater
it.
district was maybe a couple since then.
But the only way you're able to monitor wells is if they're a well used for public service. So, for example, a water well used for city of Brackettville or for Fort Clark Springs, those wells can be monitored. But a private well, after it's been drilled, no,
There's
no
no
regulation.
way to have these wells monitored without their permission, is what you're saying.
no, that would be a violation. Of
Going on private
private
property.
property.
This is why I think we need a drought plan.
Well, that would your
This should give us a little standing on our board that we can say, you have to abide by what we're going by, and we have to have some kind of law and rules that we can hold them accountable. If you don't hold anybody accountable, they're going to do just what they want to.
Well, that's what
lawsuits.
we were working on the rules before we got started on the DFC stuff, which was like imminent that we had to get that done, right? So the whole argument that I have with the Corpus Christi deal is I heard that the fine was like $21,000 for drilling well. It may not even be that. You may know more than that. Corpus Christi, which, man, we need water.
Well, yeah, 21,000
Right.
wouldn't be nothing if you're out of water.
And so that's where we need to visit our rules and say, we've got to set this up to where we are prepared for these situations. There are abandoned wells in Kenny County that we can get to work on. The problem is that if we go down south, whatever you believe, everybody does their own homework on this. Those wells may not be affecting us, but once we get our zones established, once Vince does his work, we can narrow it down and say, these are the wells we need to focus on. Let's not go put $30,000 in this well sealing it up. Let's go over here where it's going to make a difference. So that's where we're at right now, is that we had a hydrologist, we were on the right path. Then we get hit with him leaving, having to hire somebody new, where Vince comes in, lucky him. And we have to pick up the torch and run with it and let him do his work.
Okay,
And
the
so that's
water-
where I'm at.
Water runs south. Okay, am I wrong here? Water runs downhill to the coast.
They can split off and go east and west.
Yeah, I know, but there's different variations.
Depends on
But
what
you
type of
stick a
place.
straw in the glass up here high
Yeah.
and you suck it out down over here, it affects this up here.
Jim has a comment. He had his hand up. He wanted to say something. Jim, can you
Okay.
hear us? Jim?
Maybe he was waving by.
Yours? Can't hear you.
Hey, Jim.
Okay, let's try this again. Is that better?
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay, can you hear me? My only comment, at Perry, I made the joke, I just said uphill water is expensive. But my only comment was, in some of the wells, one of the things that we did, we recognized that this well completion has been an issue. And there's certainly water coming up in the wells under pressure, moving in different places and moving in areas where it shouldn't be. One of the things that we did is we looked at a potential geophysical logging program where you can look at some of these wells. And that was something that was recommended. It's part of the grant application. Now, it's not ideal. It doesn't cover every single well. But if we want to wait for a state agency to come in and do something, I think we're going to be waiting for a really long time. If we have certain areas within the county where we know or we have concerns about some well completions, we can do geophysical logging. You can see what it is. You can see where the screen intervals are. You can see where the different aquifers are, whether you're in the McKnight, Salmon Peak, Eagle Ford, Edwards, etc. And you can see whether or not this is an issue. And it's not ideal. You're not going to be able to go out and do 100 wells. But if you've got 20 that you're concerned about, let's do 3. Let's do 4. But I would agree that doing something is better than just not doing anything. And that was just my comment on the geophysical logging. We do have a mechanism in place right now. Director Minley, to answer your question, who does this? One of the individuals that can do this is a well logger, well driller. And we're working on this, trying to do it. And it is something that the district can afford and can do. And hopefully we get the grant. We hear here in a couple of weeks. Vince, you may know better than I do, but I think within the next, by the end of this month, we should know whether we got that money, and we will have the capability to identify at least a couple wells.
That's a start.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, Jim, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't you say it would be better to have a narrow bullseye of wells that are greatly affecting spring flow, whether it be Pinto or Los Moras?
Yeah. I mean, Director Ward, absolutely. I think, I think to some degree what, Director Schott said, we don't have the zones. That's right. I don't know that you need all zones to be able to understand it, but we do have general ideas. And I think Vince can tell you, we've seen correlations. We've seen some things, but to have a targeted area, absolutely. And you look at those, and if you find correlations and you see you've got some problems, okay, great. And if you don't, then you hit your next target. You can't do everything. And just like the Railroad Commission right now, we've got all kinds of oil wells across the state, and they've got, $1 billion worth of wells they need to plug. Well, they can't do them all. And so they need to select it, and so do we.
Thank you, Jim.
Something that I would submit on that argument to everybody, the public included, and Randy, I don't know what you think about this, and Blake, you were here for more of Dr. Hutchinson's work than I was, obviously, but watching him since 2023 myself or whatever, and I haven't seen the books, and I'm kind of scared to look how much we paid that guy over 12 years or whatever he was here. And his science, is it worth something? He had zones. He clearly put zone 1. He clearly put zone 2. He clearly put zone 3. So is he just blatantly wrong? Or was he kind of right? Or should we throw his 12 years of work in the round file? Or should we consider it and do something? I'm not saying we can't amend what we do, but are we just gonna, and that guy, cherry pick what he gave us or not. He gave us a lot of stuff. He misgiven us some stuff like the model, but are we just gonna wait for whatever Vince says? Because I don't think we should throw away everything Hutchison said.
I think what happened with Dr. Bill is that he realized that Kenny County is a very unique water system. And he discovered that after he didn't declare the zones. And he was answering the public cry. We were all wanting answers, and he came and did it. But I think if you called Dr. Hutchinson, he would probably say, we need to modify those a little bit.
Sure. They always are going to need to be modified.
Wouldn't you say, Jim?
I'm sorry, Director Palmer, can I jump in here? I was with Dr. Bill for the entire time he was here. And I think you're right. I think that it's unfortunate that he left. I was disappointed. Obviously, I want him to be here. I worked well with him. Let me tell you about the zones, though. The zones were put together prior to December of 2023. And prior to that, we did not have mud instrumentation in the mud wells. We did not have instrumentation in the city wells. We did not have a lot of additional instrumentation. And so what Bill put together with those zones, I think you indicated the words best available science. He put them together with the best available science at the time. The best available science we have now are showing that those zones need to be modified. And so I don't think you throw out everything Dr. Bill did. Dr. Bill did work that got us to the place where we were. And in 2023, when he put zones together, there were a lot of data points that we have today that we didn't have then. And so I absolutely would disagree that we need to discount any of his information. I think the model work that he did showed us that we did not have a proper conceptual geologic model, which is what Vince was brought in because to show some of that. And so I don't think that anyone should think that what Dr. Bill did previously should be discarded. It got us to a point of where we are today. And it's the foundation of that work that shows us that those zones need to be modified. And some of those zones were based on what we had then were correlations. And I don't disagree that some of that data is accurate. Some of it needs to be modified.
We've built upon a lot of it. Isn't that right, Jim?
Oh, absolutely. Everything Dr. Bill did got us to a point to realize why we needed Vince. And Vince, working for a previous firm, came in and did more geologic work to help us to build a good model. The reason Bill couldn't finish the model, we didn't have good geology. We didn't have a fundamental, basic, conceptual hydrologic model. And what we're seeing now, we're seeing water that's coming in from the east that we really weren't aware of before. And so, and historically, it makes sense. We've got a lot more data points in Pinto Valley now than we've ever had. And Bill didn't have that data before. And so we were spot guessing. Now we've got 50 to 80 feet of additional hydraulic head that we're trying to figure out where those groundwater barriers are coming from. And I think nobody's trying to hide anything. And I appreciate Director Ward's comment. Look, we all need to work together. We need to figure this out. This is not a simple problem. This is complex. And I think working together, we can figure it out. But I would be very remiss to discount any of Dr. Bill's work because we built on that. It's a foundation of where we are. It's a recognition that we didn't have the geology we needed. This came in, did some geology. Dr. Bill realized that, hey, I need to wait, or he didn't want to be here. He was too busy. And Vince has come in and he's looking at all the data. And I'm giving him as much data as we can collect. And so I think we're in a good point. The frustrating part, and certainly as a member of the public and those concerned, the frustrating part is you want something done, you want something done. Well, you want it done or do you want it done right? And so, and there's a big difference in how we do this. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but this board needs to, you make some decisions, but we're moving in the right direction. It may not be as fast as some want, but I'm confident that the direction we're going is the right direction.
Thanks, Jim. I agree. We gotta always be progressing. But I also am very serious about you can't be in spring training forever. You got to step on the field someday and take a chance at the win. And to sit around and practice and, get ready for the game forever is not acceptable to me. We got to do something.
Yeah, well, Director Palmer, I don't know who's sitting on the sidelines and not in the game. We're
I'm saying
going into the seventh inning. We're going into the seventh inning stretch here, and we've all been working our butts off to try to figure this out.
I understand, Jim.
We're in spring.
But we got to have a drought plan, in my opinion. We got to have one that's based on what we know, and then when we know more, we change it. You got to do it. You got to do it. You can't just plan forever. You got to do it with what you know, and then you keep working, and then whatever. You miss the double play, you practice the double play again. You just got to do it.
Look, I've never said you don't need a drought plan. Put a drought plan together. I hope your drought plan is based on actionable items.
When I was at A&M studying watershed management for my master's, I started on a project. It was over here, Concan, 40,000 acres, clear and brush. And I walked into the project. It was already 7 years into it. I spent 7 years. And they did another 8 years. And that was considered really not a sufficient amount of time, but they wanted data. So 20 years is nothing studying watershed management. It's a tiny blippet. And so.
Well, you got to do something, Tracy. You can't just study forever. You don't study for a degree forever. You got to get a job. You got to do it. That's my opinion.
I did. And we also produced a study, the professors did, but it had to be good quality data or else their peers would persecute them. Their peer review would not pass. So it has to be sufficient. But they're doing that. I feel like y'all have done an amazing job. All this controversy has created amazing amounts of data. That is so useful. Y'all are probably the most studied county in the state. It's amazing.
And that's great. And it's time that we use what we have to do something.
I think I trust the people that do this for a living.
Something. So that's what we're here to talk about. We're all going to have different opinions on what we do. Ben, what do you think? Where are you at?
I don't even think people in this room can agree on what a drought is in this county.
That's debatable too.
What is a drought? Are we looking purely at spring flow? Are we looking purely at rainfall? Are we looking at the Palmer Drought Index? I think there's things that we need to get before we can get to where we want. We all have an end goal. That's a drought plan. But you want to get there tomorrow. Some of us want to get there
sooner than
you want a drought plan tomorrow, don't you?
If I could have one tomorrow, I'd have one tomorrow.
I think there's some things that we need to figure out first. What are our end goals? What's going to set this off? If the science has changed to where the zones are not even the same, you can't zone. This is such a unique county. Spofford can't be managed the same way that Pinto Valley is.
That's true.
So we can't just do one drought plan. To me, this is a drought plan. We need 10 drought plans in this county.
Okay. My point is,
Management.
we've been here for 40 minutes? Do you know how many gallons of water have been pumped out of the ground in 40 minutes? Right now, today, how much rain has fallen in 40 minutes? Y'all don't understand. It's going to take years to redo
You're
the aquifer.
oversimplifying the water cycle. The water cycle is so much more complex than that.
It's pretty simple. You drain it out
I
faster
believe me,
than
I
you're putting
studied
it
it
in,
a
it's
long
not
time.
gonna come
I know.
back.
It's not as simple. And believe me, evapotranspiration is what is taking the water out of your land, if you want to get real specific. And it's plants
And
that
the
are
wind blows
consuming.
30 miles an hour
It's
out
the
there every
plants.
day.
It's the plants that are consuming it, actually the trees, the woody species. So grass and crop.
Tracy, can you hold it right there for a second? I'll get back to you about brush control. If you could just hold your thought for a second. Been about Palmer Drought Severity Index and goals and stuff. That should be something, for the next meeting, we should look at that, right? That's our job. What do we want Kinney County to look like, in the future? Our goal while we're on the board is to try to mold the future and, vote on what the majority of us thinks is best for the future of this county. And we can bring all those things up, but we don't want people's wells to go dry, right? We don't want Rancher X to be dried up by Rancher Y. That would be, something to think about trying to manage. We don't want water to leave the county in excessive amounts. You can't discriminate on exports, but you can manage what's used, basically. And maybe there are ways, talking to Greg or whatever, and there's laws and stuff and permits to be had about all that. But, what if a data center comes to, the edge of town? What do we do? So all those big threats, what if Laredo comes looking or whatever, which they are anyway, we know they are. So all of that is part of the goal, part of the management plan, right? Part of the drought management plan. There are things, there's examples in the state. So we're not like operating in a void. We're in a unique situation here, but what our goals are and how to get there is really not that big of a mystery.
I think you need to make a list of what is the priority here of this
Yeah.
drought plan.
Yeah.
Not just we're going to make a drought plan. That's saying I want to win the game. We need to figure out what is our first play here, and our first play is we need to figure out the zones. I think.
Well,
we need
usually
to figure out these other things.
and you start with the goal, and then you work. The zones are part of achieving the goal, right? You got to know that if your goal is to not let the spring be unduly affected by pumping, you need to figure out where that pumping is. Is the city pumping more than we know they are? Is mud, losing more than we know they are?
So is that the goal? Is the goal purely spring flow?
Not purely, no. I think usually the goal is when you have a resource like Lost Moras Springs or like Pinto Springs or like Mud Springs or any of the other springs in the county, I think that has to be one of your goals for sure.
Yes, he is.
So and we have to manage to the DFC. So, we've set that goal ourselves. We voted to establish 15 CFS over a 5-year period. So that would be one of the goals. But well levels and spring flow levels based on the hydrology, how much can be pumped? What about when it doesn't rain in the proper area? Maybe, the big bad word is curtailments. But as part of the plan, I don't know what everybody thinks about, that word, but curtailments are a tool that are used effectively some places in some circumstances. But obviously those need to be with proper data and discretion, because that's something you need to think about before you do that. But I think that should be part of the plan when we know certain wells affect the spring in a certain way. And if the spring is, 1 CFS, we might think about curtailments.
Then do we have a list? Do we have a list? You keep going back. This well affects the spring certain. Do we have a list of? We have all these data.
Well, we have all the stuff Hutchison did, and we got new stuff from Jim and Vince too. So all that is part of it.
When the spring flow goes down, we can point to this well doing it.
That's a question for Vince and Jim to back him up, but I think so. Yeah, I think there's enough.
I think it's important showing back that there's wells that we know have the immediate noticeable impact on spring flow. But then we also have wells located throughout the county that collectively are also having an impact on spring flow. So it is where it's easy to point fingers. Oh, you're having an immediate impact. Well, when you're operating on the margins and you're having that immediate impact, that's fairly significant. But collectively, there are wells that when that well's pumping, you may not notice it, but over the aggregate of 30 days, that well plus another 20 wells could be having an overall system-wide impact on spring flow. So we do have those wells in an area that we've already preliminarily been able to identify that when wells in that area pump, in that pool of water pump, there's a noticeable nearly immediate impact on spring flow. Now, once you start extrapolating outward, there's other wells that are also most likely having an impact. It's less significant in terms of when that well's pumping. It's a much smaller percentage. So we do have to be careful because it's not just a handful of wells. There's many more wells than just those immediate handful, but those immediate handful have that most immediate noticeable impact on the CFS reading that comes out of that USGS gauge.
Okay, Vince, how do you control that? If you know which wells, what's the process? Would a drought plan not set it up to where if it's in a certain area in that zone? I mean, if you know where those wells are, you know where that zone's at. Sure, we may need to have 10 different zones and 10 different drought plans, but if we don't put something on the books, we can't even start to control anything. The drought plan is our control of what's happening to our water. And if we don't ever put it down and get it in the books to start it, you can't start anything if you don't start. We can modify the drought plan to fit each zone. If we don't have one, we can't modify nothing. Correct?
At this point in time, I'm still looking for the answers. And in terms of the strategy, that's a Greg Ellis question, and then that's a board decision at the end of the day. I'm here to provide the best available science. This is hard. This is harder than I thought it was going to be. Some of the comments that were made tonight, Bill created these management zones. If I was asked to quickly come up with management zones, mine would have roughly looked similar to Bill's based on the data he had at the time. As Jim was saying, a lot of time and energy went into the creation of those management zones in terms of all the years of work that Bill did leading up to that point in time. But we have a lot more data since that point in time, and we know a lot more about this. Going back to some of the comments earlier here tonight, all the investments that the district made with Dr. Hutchison there, all those investments, whether financial, time, it led to a series of recommendations that took Kinney County to a really unique place in terms of this point in time that we're currently working with. We've got a lot of new monitoring because of Jim and because of those recommendations that Dr. Hutchison made. A lot of those things that he did, set things into motion that we're now benefiting from down the road here. So I think that's one thing we shouldn't lose sight of. The management zones are going to change. I don't know if we'll have 3 management zones, if we'll have 11 management zones. And at the end of the day, that's really not my decision. I'm going to be able to identify areas within the county with unique hydrogeologic profiles. And at the end of the day, it's going to be up to the board to decide, are these management zones? Should these be management zones? A couple things specifically related to the well completions. There's all sorts of things in terms of paths we can go down here tonight, or as a management committee, as a board, as a district. But all those things require additional investments in terms of whose responsibility is that. Well, that's something the district can maintain responsibility for, but that means additional investments into the staff. That means additional investments into the rules and the level of effort that the district wants to go as it relates to new wells. So the point in all this is all these things take time. They're not things that should be taken lightly or something that should be just be jotted down on the back of an envelope or paper napkin there. These are all things that need to be very calculated because they're all going to have ramifications down the road. Some of these things may be challenged legally, and the district doesn't want to be on the losing side of one of those battles. So what I'm asking for is continued patience. We've learned a lot, but we're also still trying to learn more. And one of the things where we're still going to be limited by the end of this, in 4 months when we provide the district with our draft report here, we're still going to be limited by data availability. Not because Jim hasn't been doing an amazing job, but we still have a lot of unknown variables that we're working with, such as well completions. we've got some wells where in one data base, it says the well's 400 TD or total depth. And then we're looking at other things and we're like, well, is this really only 200? So we're still trying to unpackage some of those things. And then we have other wells where there's just no information on it. So we think we know where that water's coming from. But then, something like temperature is different in that well. It's like, well, why is this well 10 degrees hotter than all the other wells around it? Does that mean it's deeper? So there's still a lot that we have to work through as scientists as we continue to put the pieces of the puzzle together here. Something I said early on here was, what y'all are doing right now is productive. It's exciting. Most GCDs don't do this until they're hit with a 20,000 acre foot permit, and then everything hits the fan at that point in time. So, it doesn't matter what your viewpoints are on it. You're passionate about water, and that's part of the needed ingredients in terms of bringing the district forward in terms of moving things in the right direction. As it specifically relates to some of the comments that Director Ward was making, I was like, man, has this guy hacked my computer? A lot of what you said earlier really resonates with me, Director Ward. A lot of it, aligns with some of the thoughts I've been having here. For this to work, it has to be community based. It has to be grassroots, and it's not a one size fits all. I've been trying to think about drought management. If asked to make recommendations tonight, we're not at that point of making very specific drought recommendations that relate to cut this person back this much. And it's going to take a while to get to that point in time. But I think we can reframe this in a way to where instead of just solely focusing on drought management as it relates to management zones and eventual cutbacks, it's I think better thought of as an aquifer management plan at this point in time. Drought management is one tool in the toolbox. We need to be thinking, I think, bigger picture as a community. How do we plug some of these wells that are in deteriorated or, no longer desirable condition that may be lead to commingling of aquifers? How do we help landowners that have leaking wells under artesian pressure? How do we help landowners that may have some flowing wells? I think down there by Spofford, there's some of these wells. If we do think that these things are part of the problem, then I think working together as a community to look for solutions to some of those other things, while we wait for the data to all come together, where we know that this drought management plan, this policy that we eventually have that relates to management zones and potential curtailments down the road is effective at the intended job that we're all setting out to do here, which is better manage the groundwater resources. I think there's other things that we should also be considering as part of drought management here. Brush control was mentioned earlier. If asked where brush control is going to be the most effective, my opinion on that has changed in the last 30 days because of rainfall events. So there's still a lot of work to be done here. These things will take time, but the district is, moving hugely in the right direction through everything I've seen here, almost going on a year now. So that's my soapbox related to it all.
Vince, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's Dave Palmer. Noted all that stuff. I would agree with you, but my question is, let's just say, for example, the mud wells and the city wells. It's pretty well known right now, and Jim, you've told us this over and over. The mud wells and the city wells are the most highly correlated. So it's safe to say that the mud and city wells, when they pump, have an effect on Lost Moors Spring. So wouldn't it be wise for us as a drought committee, drought management plan committee, or the board period, call it whatever, essentially it's the same thing. Wouldn't it be wise for us to work on some format and bring the city and bring mud into the equation, because they should be at the table too eventually? But what would that look like, right? They have drought plans themselves, but I think as we work towards a drought plan, that might be a good place to start with those two, because we know those. We don't need any more data to make progress on what those two entities do in time of drought. The city's exempt, but they could be talked with, and it's likely to be a win-win for them and the whole area. if we can come to some kind of agreement that looks like when times are bad, this is something that should be done. I mean, why, we don't have to wait for that. We can get to work on it now.
Well, and just one correction, they're part of a collection of wells that are highly correlated. They're not the most highly correlated. They are part of a collection of wells that are highly correlated with the spring that, as we pointed out a few meetings ago, include some domestic wells within that same area. Those are the large producers. And obviously the Bud's more correlated than the city's well is just by proximity. And so there is a pool, a Lost Moras Springs pool that is very highly correlated. You are correct. But this is where I caution you, because just because they're the most strongly correlated does not mean that they're the only ones. And so I think it's a
No.
little bit of a slippery slope to where, we may be overly punitive to them in a way that, may not be fair. We do know when certain activities happen, there is a noticeable decline in spring flow. I mean, anyone could look at the spring flow graphs and pretty quickly figure out, what happens at point A to point B as it relates to spring flow. But I do think it's something that should be, the approach should be very thoughtful. There should be lengthy conversations with Greg Ellis on this point, because they're not the only ones. They're the ones that are most highly correlated. But that also should not be most significant, impactful either. So
Right.
we need to make sure we're differentiating between highly correlated and most impactful. The most impactful piece is the piece we may not ever be able to answer that we're continuing to unpackage. They are strongly correlated. They do have an immediate impact. So we've just got to be careful as we continue to unpackage this and we think about, what that could look like. Alternatively, there are other solutions out there that could limit their production. And this is where I'm going to go back to a grassroots community-based approach to all this. Anecdotal information is they all have very high water loss. Right now, the state is throwing money at cities, at water providers to fix leaky pipes. If those rumors of very high water loss are true, I mean, instead of asking them to cut back 50%, alternatively, it could be go after the state money. Let's help you as a community submit these grants. Let's get this done. And then in turn, we could cut back water usage 50% without being overly punitive. So,
Yeah, that's another great option. Cause there's progress to be made on lots of fronts, let's say. Cool. Thanks.
I've got a question.
I'm just asking that we're very cautious, we're very thoughtful as we continue to have these conversations, that we're all very clear on the difference between correlated and most impactful, because that's what we're still trying to unpackage here. There is a very, very strong correlation. We do see the spring flow drop when the mud operates its wells.
And
But
Vince, timeline wise, like we're talking late summer, we might have a little more,
yeah,
just a little more solid thoughts, tangible
And-
opinions.
right. And what we're working towards are hydrogeologic areas within the county, areas that are hydrogeologically distinct from one another as it relates to management zones in Chapter 36. One of the key requirements there are that these zones be hydrogeologically unique from other areas or aquifers within the county. Now, we're very confident that we're going to get to that point. We're not confident that we're going to have, here's the answer, here's everything you're looking for as it relates. You got to cut them back 30%. You've got to cut them back 50%. We're not going to be to that point in time. We're going to have these hydrogeologically distinct areas. We may know which areas are more strongly correlated than others. We may know, hey, this area really doesn't appear to be related in any way whatsoever. We kind of have the gutters that I mentioned to you in passing, in reference to the bowling alley there. We're going to be much further along than this county, than this district ever has been, but there's still going to be unanswered questions at the end of all this. We're going to make recommendations. Here's the 3 or 4 things we recommend next. at the end of those 3 or 4 things, we might discover something new, or we might be at a place to where, hey, we feel like this thing's pretty locked but there's always going to be a little uncertainty here. And once again, these things take time. District has made a lot of positive steps in the last year in terms of, working together in the right direction. I think the DFC revising that was a huge accomplishment, something that the district should be proud of. What we're trying to do in a very short period of time is usually what GCDs do over 10 or 15-year period. It's all very intentional. It's very deliberate. And we've got to make sure that that's the comment that was just being made about the science, that, as this gets peer reviewed, others aren't going to poke holes in this.
Okay, if the
Got a question?
submitting a drought contingency plan for this county, is there any legal action that they're going to take against us just for putting one on the books? I mean, once we get all this mapped out where each one of these zones are, if we don't ever put it on the books, we don't ever get started to controlling what's happening to each one of them. We can sit here and talk about all these wells affecting the springs, but if you don't have any recommendations or anything to follow to get it controlled, then what good are we doing here anyway? How are we going to control it if we don't put a drought contingency plan in place to where we can start managing these things once we find out? Each zone can be different. We're going to fight another 10 years over the changing it to get it in place. Why not get it on the books? Then let's sit down and argue and fight out the rest of it on which zone and how much and all
the
that.
language, Perry, can be manipulated to where it starts, and don't get my intentions misinterpreted either, like saying, I want a drought plan tomorrow, but it's not without careful thought, consideration, knowing what the data says, what's legal, what's not legal, what's, being a good neighbor, what's not being a good neighbor. All of that has to come into it. What's the will of the majority of the board, whatever. But I just want to say, I think these meetings are healthy. I think we need to do this. I think in our regular meetings, when we're not just in a committee, we don't have any kind of discussion. We don't have much interaction. We just all in favor, say aye and whatever. So I'd like to see these meetings continue and stuff comes up, and then we can, task Vince or Jim or anybody, go send Marty to some place we want to look at this well, whatever. Call TDLR and see what they have to say about the whole thing. So I hope that we can meet again in a month. And, the verbiage of a drought plan, a drought plan that says when the spring flow is 2, we ask the city to voluntarily cut back 10%. That could be, that could be something we could do. And that would be more than looking at the water weekly. And if they say, oh, sorry, we can't do that, we don't want to play, then that's, that's something, whatever, we take note on. But I think there is progress that can be made. So it doesn't have to be crazy.
No, it's the baby steps.
Yeah. So that's what could happen.
But if we don't submit one, we don't have any steps to take.
We
need to put
can,
something
and
in
we'll
the
decide.
books.
We can.
And then each area, if we come up with different zones, then we're going to argue and fight about it for another 10 years,
forever.
getting each zone right and how much to do and what to do. But if you don't have it on the books, you don't have anything to argue about. You got to have it on the books to start. In my opinion. Now, I don't, if you don't ever put it up there where we can change anything, we can change it. Just like Matt's wanting to do the brush control. He can do brush control in certain areas and make the water better coming in that area. We can change that. That's what the whole thing is. If we get it put in the books before we can get started, then we can work on each zone and what they need. But if you don't ever start, you don't get anywhere.
So what would you implement right now?
I would just implement a basic plan to where we say we're going to manage this area, we're going to manage this area, and they all can be different, but that's what you have it for, is you can change it as you go. That's what the motions are for, to change each rules in that. But if you don't have nothing to start out with the basics, you can't change anything.
Gentlemen, may I give y'all something to consider? There's 865,000 acres in Kenny County, of which 50 to 75% of it's covered with woody species cover. Less than 1% of the land is irrigated. So please consider that in the whole scheme of things. So less than 1% of Kenny County, it's actually 0.8%, is irrigated. The rest is rangeland and brushland, of which is covered up to 75% with woody species.
How many gallons you reckon they pump?
And each tree consumes about 30 gallons a day. Just so y'all have that in the back of your head. You
Who's
have to
pumping, Perry? Who are you talking about?
So Tracy,
I'm just talking about in
Brush
general
control
right
can
now,
be
per
effective.
hour,
This
I
is
would
what I'm
give you
talking
that.
about.
out of the ground
Brush control
is not
change is
going
how
back
much is
in. That's
irrigated
just my point.
out of all the land in Kenny County, 865,000 acres. Less than 1% is irrigated. So it's something to think about. So is that?
Right, but so there's recharge and there's use.
Yes.
So we need to work on both sides of the equation. It's like if certain areas, I mean, the science says there's a lot written about brush control. So I'm not going to steal your thesis or what. There's books about brush control. There's a guy that I want to get that said he would come and talk to us about brush control that wrote a bunch of stuff about it. Not the guy that wrote the book, but some other scientist guy. Forget his name. I got his email at home.
Is he with the NRCS?
No, I don't
Who
think
is he
so.
with, Dave?
I'll get you more information on it. But he's got a PhD in this stuff as far as I know. Anyway, so we can bring this guy and you can hear what he says. And he's pro brush control, but and you can confirm this, you don't just clear out all the brush, you target where it's done. So we could do some of that. So
It's
just
not
it's
about
a
brush
long.
control. No, what I'm trying to
But-
say is what's stealing the water is the brush. You have less than 1% irrigated, and the rest is evapotranspiration. So it's taking the water before it hits the ground.
I
or the root
understand.
system.
I understand. So if you
So that's where a
if
lot
you
of the
change
water,
that equation, there's more supply.
especially in recharge zones, yes.
But even if you did all that and you got more supply and it got into wherever it got in the aquifers, some got into this aquifer over here, some got into this aquifer over here, whatever. Some of it mixes a little bit, it's Swiss cheese, whatever. More water gets into the aquifers.
Yes.
But if you overuse what gets into those aquifers, then you have issues, more issues. Wells going dry, springs going dry, might never come back.
Well, that's when 1% is
Problems.
being used.
So- No, well, if you use the wrong water in the wrong place, then you have issues for the people that rely on that
Kind of like
water.
the Fort, because they're the only ones that
So-
over permitted.
What do you mean? Well,
The mud,
Well, you see
aren't
that-
they
I don't
the
know
only
that they're
ones?
over permitted.
They are the only ones in the last 10 years that have.
You're saying use more than they're
overused.
permitted.
Yes,
Well, that's another issue. They should not be doing that, and we need to work that out
but
too.
you have gone on public stuff and have talked about how the pumpers have pumped, over pumped and constantly. You have gone on social media and you've done that.
I have never purposely said that anybody with a permit has overused their
Yes,
permit.
You have. and
So you
I've
can
got
show me
copies
that.
of it. I
Okay,
will.
you can go ahead and show me that. But what I would say is use has gone up significantly in the last however many, let's call it 6 years, right? Pumping has increased. That's a fact. Pumping last year, Vince, increased, right, over what it was in 2024.
And it's a drought, too.
So,
That happens.
but regardless, pumping went up. Okay, so
It's
if
dry.
pumping goes up unregulated,
We are
that
regulated.
is something that should be managed. So just because somebody has a permit for 10,000 acre feet and they only pump 5,000 acre feet in 2025, but in 2021 they pumped 2,000 acre feet, then that's something that the board needs to be conscious of and take efforts to figure out if that's manageable or needs to be something that they do something different about. So it's not the permitted amount, it's the usage and how it affects neighbors. how it affects
Yeah,
the
and you
port.
know, and I
how
know
it
damn
affects-
well that you know how much we have used. I know you do. And we have. We don't over pump because we do know it's a drought. We only use what we absolutely need to. And we have not even farmed a lot of our fields
That's,
because of the drought.
that's fine. I didn't say you over pumped.
Yes, you have.
You want
Okay, show it to me. That's
you want action.
so.
You want
no,
action.
No, well,
We just
Right,
want to
we're-
get
but
something
we're here
on
for a
the
reason.
board
What we
can
want-
start.
what
No,
I
but
want
can I-
is,
can I
I
finish?
think I want this meeting to continue. I think this discussion needs to
Tonight or
continue.
later on?
No, we're about to be done as far as I'm concerned, but I think we should schedule another meeting. Get together, talk about brush control, talk about whatever, talk about mitigation efforts, talk about, permitted amounts, talk about what our plan is gonna be going to in the future.
If you want action, I think, and this is not a motion item because we're not doing that tonight, but I want
We
to put on,
could actually, because we have a quorum, I think, so you can vote on stuff if you want.
I want to put on the agenda that we authorize either Marty or Jim or whatever the wording needs to be. If y'all want to take action and make something happen, let's start looking at these wells. Vince has mentioned it, the abandoned wells, the ones that we
Need to come
think,
up with a list of wells.
come up with a list, a GPS on them or whatever else, anything you see out there that, we might be able to do an x-ray on or whatever and just check them out.
Then we could,
Like, you'll have to do it at the next meeting because it's just discussion, but there's no action.
But this is just an agenda item. We can talk about an agenda
Yeah,
item,
it has-
adding an agenda item anytime.
It has, discussed.
We're good, right?
Yeah.
But I want to do it while everybody's here.
yeah. that's
That way
good.
everybody
Yeah, why
has
not?
that. If y'all
And then
want to
we
make
could,
a move,
like,
let's make a
At a
move.
meeting, we could probably propose to hire some guy that goes and does that.
Well, we can open up, we need to vote on it if
Yeah.
it's something that we want to go down the road on,
Yeah.
is what I think. And
Hey,
I,
Director Ward and Director Palmer, or the whole board, yes. Let me just make the comment here. Marty and I were on the phone today, and one of the things that we had talked about was going out and doing that exact thing already. And so whether, just our well permitted inventory that we had done, I think in we finished it about 2 years ago in May of 2024. We had discussed today, we went through the items, we went through the wells to go out and re-look at all of the wells that we did 2 years ago. But we're looking at it from a different angle and from a different perspective. If there are specific things that you would like us to look at, I think that can be a board item. But just so you know, generally going out, looking at each of the wells, re-inventory them, looking, maybe categorizing them a little bit differently based on tonight's conversation. But that is something that is on our list to do already.
Okay, if we're gonna put something on the agenda, and I've brought it up several times tonight,
are we writing this
do
down?
we have any legal ramifications that would happen to the board if we was to put a drought plan in place? Doesn't have to have any specifics on any area or any wells. We put it on there where we can vote on it and get these areas done.
But if you have any
What?
action, you always have repercussions.
What do
Anybody
you
can sue you for
think
any
the
reason,
drought
yeah.
Plan, if you put it in, Harry, what is your end goal? What are you trying to
Well,
accomplish?
okay, like he's talking about these wells right here that they're talking about having to fix. If you don't have any legal way to go out and do these things and help these people, that's part of the drought plan, is to help get these wells under control that's out of control or leaking or whatever they're doing.
This can be done outside the plan.
Yeah, that would.
This is something else.
This is your drought plan. Do you want to stop? You want to cut people's water? You want to say, "Oh, you need to stop 30% because we're 30% below rainfall,"
How long?
or however
When
however
all
you
this
work.
water runs out.
Can I finish my question before you answer? In your drought plan that you want to put forward now, if you're saying that we're going to start cutting people's water, yes, there's going to be legal ramifications to that.
Okay, I'm not saying we're going to cut anybody's water.
Then what is your drought plan?
The drought plan is brush control. There's all kinds of stuff that goes in this drought plan. It's not just go trying to cut somebody's water.
That needs to be
That's what
something
everybody
done.
thinks
That needs to
we're
be
gonna
something
do.
done outside the drought plan. That needs to be something that's yearly. That needs to be.
That needs
It doesn't
to be-
need to be that we're in a drought.
That needs to be in the drought plan because that is controlling. And in the
Okay.
rules, I'll have to pull it up again. And a lot of this stuff says for like getting meters and stuff, you have to have a drought contingency plan in order to do all this stuff. And our management plan says that. I will look it up again. I read it. It says you have to have a drought contingency plan for your management plan. And it's just a simple deal. You don't have to go out there and try to shut everybody's water off. That's what everybody's thinking is happening here. It's not. But if we get down to the point where the drought is so bad and our aquifer gets so bad, what are we going to do? Then we're going to fight about it another 10 years? That's not helping anybody. That's not fixing anything. That's sitting on
why
our
we gotta
hands and
get
not letting it
together and
happen.
just talk about it. So
I mean, if we put it
So
on
you
to
we
a
can put on
vote,
the meeting agenda.
I've already
but-
put it on the agenda and they didn't put it on there.
We can work on that. Do you guys want to do this again, or you just want to not do these kind of committee meetings? I mean, if we're not going to have committee meetings, then just tell Wes to get rid of the committee. But I think we should have committee meeting, like in another month. I don't know. You guys want to do it again? Whatever. It's an hour.
I think that what I would do with these committee meetings is not only work on the drought plan, but I would also, if we're going to progress with the abandoned wells deal, keep those out of our general meeting.
Yeah,
Move them to this committee meeting as
can-
well.
I don't see why we can't.
So we have more to talk about,
I
and we
don't
can
see why
say-
we can't do that.
What
So let's meet in another month. Is like when's good for you guys?
my challenge to everybody leaving here would be to think about water movement and pressure and basic engineering. And Jim's the man, but you can do your own and think about water movement and the volume that moves. And whenever you do that, it takes you to a different scale and you're realizing,
Oh,
wow.
I know I go through it every day.
So if you
I
have,
pump water into the tank. I can bend the hose. I can
I'm
hold my thumb
talking
over the
about
hose.
I'm talking about underground.
Yes, but it's the same thing. They're pumping it out of the ground and they're running half of it into the tank, and I can't water the horses. I can put my thumb over it and stop it because half of it's going into the lake, half of it's coming out of the hose. Well, my half I can stop with my thumb. I know what
So
you're
that's
talking about.
that's all I had for today, you guys. I think it's a good start. I don't know. I feel good coming out of this meeting. Can we get it done again, like in June? Some Tuesday night in June.
Sometime in June.
So I was thinking, whatever my notes are, suggest June 9th at 6:00. It's a Tuesday. Is that any problem with anybody?
I can't plan one day ahead. How
Well,
long
I
am
know it's
gonna
just
be?
a little more than a month out. So. All right,
Matt, I'd like for some of
June 9th. It's the second Tuesday in June.
Well, my name's Blake.
Blake, excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. You can call me Fred.
I don't want, it's a respect deal. I call you
Well, I'm
friendly.
Just kind of plan on June.
So
9th.
is that okay with the board? Ben, is that decent day for you? Who knows? June 9th, is that?
You may get your printout on it.
Looks good for us.
I got
June 9th.
Andy's really good on that stuff. too.
All right, and if three of us are here, that's better than no conversation. I don't know.
I think it's good dialogue.
We can still have it, it'll just won't be quorum. We don't have to take minutes. Out of
Quorum
what
doesn't
Greg
really
said,
do
yeah.
anything anyway. We're just
So
talking
we can
about it.
still have it if it's just two directors, is what Greg said.
All right.
And I'll send an email out prior as a reminder that day is still working.
Okay. Let's shoot for that, June 9th.
Yeah, you just
All
can't.
right. All right. Anybody in the audience want
I
to make
do.
last comments?
One of the things mainly is why there's not a drought plan and why it has not, progressed on was because they have had committees. But just like Palmer, Elizabeth Hodges, and some others, they had lied about that. They had presented the proof of that all to the court. They had come up with their own little drought management when they were supposed to be working with the whole board. And,
What are you talking about, Pam?
I'm
And
talking
don't
about
call me a liar.
Well, you did. It's on video. You sat there and said that you did not consult with anybody else but just your committee. When she got up at the Fort Springs meeting 4 days prior to the meeting and said that she didn't talked about the drought plan, asked if they had seen it, she had copies of it. I've got a
You're
recording
taking
on my
that
phone
totally out of
he-
context. So
Huh?
thank you for your comment. You can put that on Facebook if you want. Anybody else, anything else?
Yeah, I was like,
All right.
I just want a truth to be put out there, not lies.
Well, stop the
Well,
mudslinging. I mean,
yes.
this is, everybody's got the
Stop it,
same
yeah.
goal. It's just a different way to go about it. So I would like to make a suggestion. Vince, when he first started, here, he had a recommendation and a format to follow. While we're sitting here, I did a little bit of research, and there's several different other groundwater districts that follow the same format. So I feel like using his information should
Yeah, you're
be
real funny.
and follow his protocol would be a really good idea. Y'all paid him to do this. He's the expert, and I think he's provided a lot of good guidance in giving this direction instead of just going, well, I want to paint this wall white. Well, okay, how do we go about it? Well, you've got to go buy the paint. You've got to find paint. You've got to go through these steps. So, like, the number one thing I would do is, what's the definition of a drought? Well, there's 4 different types of droughts. And you want to define those. So which one are you trying to achieve, or what percentage of one, and break it down scientifically. And then it'll take all this effort that y'all been putting into it all this time and consolidating it in a structured manner that everybody can understand, a playbook that makes sense. And I think that everybody's
That works.
going in the right direction.
Yeah, because really, it's not necessarily a drought management plan. It's
It's a
our job
management
is to
plan.
manage the aquifer, to, use Terry's word, manage the water resource. So that's, in time of drought and times of,
Manage the water resource without
so what?
infringing upon everybody's personal
unduly
freedoms.
infringement. So
So
that's
you have to make
valid.
sure all goals are achieved, not just one set.
That's understood. That's valid.
But I like the way he's doing it because it's scientific.
Well, Vince
And it
said a
works.
while ago, David, he said aquifer management plan.
And that's a good term. So that, so
Maybe
the
we-
name, I think the goal is the same. The name could
Definition.
change. So that's fine.
Start with definitions.
And then
So
that
any
starts like
contract
with
you sign,
Matt.
it
Right.
outlines the
Excuse me,
definitions.
Mr. Wa-
that we'll use for
I don't know why I'm
contract.
calling you Matt.
So start.
I enjoy it because at least Matt's
And I
getting in
bet
trouble
he's
and I'm
got
not.
protocol.
No,
Slide that over here.
He's right here.
Anybody, last chance, we're gonna adjourn. We good? Adjourn.
I just
All
want to say,
Was
since
that
real
what you
quick, thank you guys for getting together and talking civilly about this, because going back and forth and pointing fingers does nothing. Nothing at all. So
Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Show this to Mark.